Welcome to the Pursuit of Constant Improvement podcast, the fitness and self-improvement podcast for those who are looking to become the best human being possible. If your goal is to improve your mind, your body, and your routine, then you are in the right place. If you gain some value from this episode, I would be incredibly grateful if you could rate the podcast on Spotify or subscribe on YouTube. But without further ado, I am your host, Connor Malone, and this is the Pursuit of Constant Improvement. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you the exact self-improvement system I used to change my life. I'm going to share with you the position that I used to be in, the position that I'm in now, and the exact steps that I took to get to where I am now, a position that I love, the position that I am fulfilled by. I'm also going to share how I use this to help my clients. I help my clients build a physique and a routine and inevitably a life that they can be proud of. And it is by following this structure here. Now, again, I'm going to go over everything, but before I start with that, I want to clarify for you what self-improvement actually is. Because we hear this all the time, like self-improvement, self-development, self-help, and all this. And some people don't really, despite the name, they don't understand what it is. Now, let me explain that for you. Self-improvement is actively working towards making yourself a better person by developing new skills, changing habits, or enhancing your knowledge in various areas of your life, whether it be personal, professional, physical, or mental, with the goal of reaching your full potential. Now, when I looked at that and I gained that definition for you to help give you some clarity on that, it made it clear for me that there's essentially two paths in life that people walk down. Now, one of them, you live life by design and you achieve the things that you desire, or we live by default. We go through life without any goals, any desires, or without taking responsibility for our own lives. Self-improvement is the opposite of that. Self-improvement is a life by design. You do things because you want to do them, not because other people have told you to do them. What I'm going to go over today is in part we talk about vision. We have this idea of the type of life we want to live. Self-improvement is pursuing that life. This podcast, my coaching, is called the Pursuit of Constant Improvement. That's essentially my life. It is this pursuit of becoming better. There is no end point. There is no, once I'm here, I'll be happy. Once I'm here, I'll be fulfilled or I'll be successful. It's just every single week, every single month of my life, becoming better, enhancing my skills, becoming a better human being. I could be becoming better with my relationships, my friendships, becoming better physically, better mentally, spiritually, whatever you want to call it, financially. Developing all these areas of my life, that is self-improvement. And if that to you is what you want to live a life by design, a life that you truly want, then you're going to love this episode because I'm going to go over exactly how I managed to do that. Now, to explain that to you, I have to first explain a bit about my journey and where I started. So today you see me talking to you with confidence in front of this camera, with this microphone. I'm talking to you about how I got to where I am now. I was never the type of person to be able to do this. I used to be physically the smallest and the skinniest guy in my year. I was very small through primary school, through high school, especially in primary school. That led to being bullied, which again was a really good thing for my life when I look back on it. But as most people are, when you're the smallest in your year, you get bullied. That was something natural to me. So what that meant was the whole point throughout my childhood, I always wanted to be more muscular. I wanted to be bigger. I wanted to be taller. I wanted to be the type of guy that people could look at and respect based on their build. Not somebody who people looked at and they laughed and they picked on. That's what I was when I was younger. I never wanted to be that. Now, when I was 15 years old, there's I almost want to say, I wouldn't say it's a turning point in my life, but it's a very important point in my life. So 15 years old, in high school in Scotland, you are doing your first level of exams, which in fourth year is your National 5 exams. So in the year, basically once we got to our exams, everybody in the year has exams. Some of them have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 exams. Okay, most people have kind of 3, 4, or 5 exams based on what subjects they're doing National 5 rather than National 4. I was one of about 5 to 10 people in my year group that did not sit an exam. Why? Because I was not smart enough. I lacked the intelligence. I wasn't necessarily bad behaved in school, but I didn't listen, I didn't apply myself. And because of that, I ended up being dropped from National 5s to National 4 in all of my subjects. So when it came to sitting exams, everybody went on study leave. And let's say, for example, there's probably 1,000 or 1,200 people in my school. So my year group, that would mean there was roughly 200 people. There was literally between 5 and 10 people in the entire year. Most of them, by the way, had learning difficulties, which to my knowledge, I don't have. But I was one of these people. So I was literally forced to go into school because I had no exams, because I didn't apply myself. I turned up to some classes. My teacher was like, what are you doing here at study leave? And I was like, oh, well, I'm not sitting in exams. And they were amazed. They were like, oh my God, Jesus Christ. And the way that made me feel was like, I felt so inferior because all my friends were off, all of my seniors, they were way smarter than me. And I was the very bottom of the barrel on an academic level. So what that meant is I had this limiting belief from school. I had this belief that I wasn't smart. I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. I would never do the things that I wanted to do. Because when you're in fourth year, everybody talks about, oh, I'm going to go to university and maybe I'll start a business and do that. If I said that to my friends, they would just laugh at me. They would say, no, you're not. Like, you're not even sitting any exams. Like, people would take the piss out of it. Again, that was something that to me just built this belief in, like, I wanted to be intelligent, but I didn't feel it. I didn't feel like I could be. I also loved the fact of, or the thought of owning my own business, of running a business. I loved that idea. I used to play games that were revolved around businesses. Now, when I was in fourth year, I studied business. Wasn't smart enough to sit the exam. When I was in fifth year, I studied business. I got a D. When I went to higher in sixth year, they let me do higher. They ended up kicking me out. So I didn't get a qualification, or at least I didn't pass business. I'm probably one of the only people in my year group that runs a business, and I have done since I was 19 years old. But again, we will get to that stage. So once I was about to leave school, I didn't have qualifications to get into uni. Like, I couldn't have got into any uni course. So what I had to do was apply for college. So I remember scrolling through one day, and I was in a computer class, and I was looking through courses, and I found Motherwell College, and they had this fitness, health, and exercise course. And for me, my first passion, thankfully, which I found at 15, was exercise, was nutrition, was anatomy and physiology. It was the first thing I ever wanted to know more about. And that was because I started training at the gym at the age of 15. So this is where my first ever passion started. I then went to college. That led me to study for 3 years, inevitably become a personal trainer. So that was a huge part of where I am today. The next thing was when I discovered self-improvement at 19 years old. On Instagram, I joined this page. I remember it was for this course that I wanted to learn how to trade all these currencies and basically Forex trading, which is 19, every young guy gets dragged into because you want to get rich quick. Now, I didn't end up pursuing that, and I ended up failing in that. But what I did gain from that is I got put into this group chat. And this group chat was full of these optimistic, hungry, ambitious people. They were so consistent. They read, they listened to audiobooks. I'd never heard of audiobooks. I'd never heard of podcasts before. So when people were talking about all these things and, oh, I read this book and I learned this, I was like, whoa, holy shit. Like, all this is possible. These people are disciplined. These people are consistent. These people are starting businesses. And it made me think, like, oh, crap, I could do that. So that was when my own self-improvement started. That was when I very first started listening to audiobooks. The first one I ever listened to was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then Think and Grow Rich. That was at 19 years old. I then continued to listen to audiobooks. I started to read books, listen to podcasts. I've been doing that now for 10 years almost. In terms of training, I started at 16 years old. So that's been 10 years. In terms of my own self-improvement, has been 7 years. So this has compounded into where I am today. At 26 years old, I built a successful personal training business, which I ran for 5 years. I now have an online coaching business. I run my own podcast. I lived in Asia just there. I just lived in Thailand for 3 months of my life while running my business. I was totally sustained financially by my business. I didn't rely on savings. I managed to build my business to a position where I could travel the world and work on that every single day while building my mind and my body to the best position they've ever been in. I'm the most confident I've ever been. I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. I'm the most consistent and most disciplined. If you look at all the people I went to school with, I stand out. And all of that came from self-improvement because I chose a different path in life. I didn't choose to live life by default. I chose to live by design. So now we're going to get into that process. The very first thing I've done and the very first thing I do with clients is create our ideal selves. We create a vision. For me to get to where I am today, I had to have an idea of where I wanted to be, what type of person I wanted to be. For example, I wanted to be consistent. I wanted to be confident enough to speak in cameras. I wanted to create content online. I wanted to be all of these things. So I started to paint this picture of the type of man I wanted to be. I wanted to know how I wanted to look, what type of relationships I wanted to have, what type of people I wanted to be around, what type of business I wanted to run. Now, some of the things that can help you realize what your ideal self is and the type of person you want to be is, I've got these questions for you. What do you admire most about other people? Maybe you admire their confidence. Maybe you admire the shape that they're in. Maybe you admire the fact that they're very disciplined or consistent. If you admire that in others, there's a good chance that you want that too. Another one, what do you become jealous of in others? This is a great one. Maybe you find yourself feeling jealous or envious towards someone. Well, maybe it's because they're doing something that you want to do. Maybe you see somebody posting content online, you're like, oh, fuck's sake, man, imagine doing that. Oh, it's embarrassing. That's it. When in actual fact, you're the one that's insecure because you want what they have. Maybe you don't want to create content, but you want the confidence that comes with it. Again, what you're envious or jealous of is a great way to discover what you truly want. So don't see it as a negative thing. We all become jealous and envious of certain things. It's natural. Another thing, what would the life you can be proud of look like? If we go as far forward as our deathbed and when you're eventually there, if you were to look back, what would be a life that you'd be fulfilled by? Would it be working a job you hate, being in a relationship you don't like, and doing things that you don't like just to please other people that you don't even like? Or would it be living in total alignment with your values, the things that you value most in life, pursuing improvement every single day, having relationships and friendships that you love and you value and you find inspiring? What would that look like for you? You need to paint that picture. So step number 1 of the self-improvement process is creating your ideal self, creating a picture or a vision of the type of man or person that you want to become. Now, a great quote that I learned recently was, the purpose of questions is to make the subconscious conscious. Because deep down, you know what you want. You just can't think of that consciously yet. So me asking you these types of questions, this is why I do it with all my clients. I question them through our coaching calls. Because once you start to be questioned, you start to make the unconscious conscious. You bring these ideas to the forefront of your mind and you think, oh shit, maybe this is what I want. This is what I want to pursue. Now, step number 2 of the process is to remove self-limiters. Self-limiters are anything that holds you back from becoming the type of person you want to become. That could be bad habits. That could be limiting beliefs. It could be certain people or certain environments. People that drain you of energy. Environments that drain you of energy. Because the opposite would be true. If it's people that you're inspired to be around, that would give you energy. So you think of that. Who are the people you spend time with, or where are the environments that you spend time in and you don't feel great about it? Those are the things you have to remove or at least reduce from your life. Who are those people? So again, think of the people who inspire you most, the people who when you talk to, you just feel better about life. You want to spend time with those. See the people that drain you of energy, you want to limit your time around those people. Now, for me, the self-limiters at the age of 19 was things like 19 and 20, it was Snapchat. I used to spend this time doom scrolling through Snapchat and all these stories. I deleted that app. I've never re-downloaded it since. I don't know how many hours that saved me over the years. My Xbox, I loved Xbox. I played it every single day of my life from probably the age of 9 or 10 up until the age of about 18 or 19. In fact, it would have been 20 when I started my clothing brand. I sold it, which was a big decision for me, but I had to get rid of it because I was spending 2 or 3 hours on it at night when what I actually wanted was to build a business. I wanted to focus on improvement, and I wasn't going to do that by spending time playing Xbox every night. So it may be an extreme example, but I done that and it paid off. Another thing for me was alcohol. Now, I still drink, but it's greatly limited compared to what it used to be. Because what I found was I wasn't progressing at the speed I wanted to, because every single weekend I was going out, I was spending money on alcohol, I was feeling hungover the next day, so I felt lacking motivation, lacking mood, like my mood was lower. Whereas, see right now, I feel so good most days, I feel so inspired and so fulfilled and so energized by what I do. Drinking alcohol and being hungover is not worth it to me. So there'll be a very limited amount of times in the year when I actually do that. So again, removing self-limiters, that's step number 2. Step number 3 of 4 is creating an unstoppable routine, which is based off of those first 2 steps. To create an unstoppable routine, we have to realize, first of all, where we want to be. Because if you don't know where you want to be, then you're not going to know how to fill your routine in order to get there. So once you know the type of person you want to be, we can fill our routine with habits that are going to push us towards that. What you want to think of is this. Your routine is what's going to get you towards your goal or your ideal self. So you think of you being here right now and your ideal self, your goal being here. By following through in your routine and your non-negotiables, you take a step towards that ideal self. If you follow through in your self-limiters or your bad habits, you take a step back. So by limiting those bad habits and those self-limiters, but following through in our non-negotiables for a routine which is aligned with our ideal self, you start to push up towards that. So again, we think of that as a journey. We follow through in the things we know we need to do to get to where we want to be, and we don't do the things we know that we need not to do. So 2 ways to create an unstoppable routine is, again, realize what are the habits that I need to do in order to become my ideal self. Think of people that inspire you, people that are maybe in the position in life that you want to be in. What is it they do every single day that helps them get there? Maybe they work out on a regular basis. Maybe they spend a lot of time working on their business. They spend a lot of time working on themselves. Well, great, then you need to make your life centered around those same habits. That is how you start to do that. You gain inspiration from people who are in a position where you want to be. Also, what don't they do? Maybe they're not going out all the time. Maybe they're not spending time with people that they don't actually value or that they find uninspiring, that drain them of energy. Well, great. Look at what they don't do and also copy that. Because again, what you don't do in life is just as important as what you do. You could be doing all the right things, but if you're over consuming in all these negative and bad habits, they're going to pull you back. As I just explained to you here, if you're walking up to here, you're going in this position here, you're following through in your non-negotiable habits, your bad habits and your self-limiters pull you back. Now, once we've made it clear what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, we make non-negotiables around that. They create standards for our life. Because now we know, right, these are what we have to do, this is what I have not to do. That is your life standards. The last step of that process is aligning with that routine. So you align that routine with your ideal self. So the things that you do on a weekly and a monthly basis are pushing you towards that ideal self rather than pulling you away from it. So when you think of that person you want to be, you follow through on the things that are going to help you become that person. You do the things you say you're going to do, and you don't do the things you say you're not going to do. It is as simple as that. So again, just to highlight those 4 processes there, we start by creating a vision of our ideal self, where we want to be in life. Once we've detailed what that person looks like, this has nothing to do with material things you want. This is to do with the type of person you want to become. Once you've outlined that, you then move on to step number 2, which is removing your self-limiters or bad habits, the things that hold you back in life. Once you've done that, you can then create a routine, an unstoppable routine, filled with habits that push you towards becoming that ideal self. And you make it clear the things that you need to do and the things you need not to do to become that person. Step number 4 is simple. You live in alignment with that. You follow through on your non-negotiables and you don't do those things that we just mentioned there. That is how we start to, that's self-improvement as a whole. You follow that process, that's self-improvement to a T. You're in alignment with that. Now to finish this episode, I'm going to leave you with a quote. The quote says, "We'd be crazy to want to face difficulty in life, but we'd be equally crazy to pretend it isn't going to happen. Which is why, when it knocks on our door, let's be sure we're prepared to answer." That's a quote from the Daily Stoic. It's Ryan Holiday that writes this passage in the Daily Stoic. And what he's explaining there is, we should be prepared for difficulty in life. And that's what self-improvement teaches us. We should be aware of the fact that things aren't always going to be perfect. Now, we don't need to be this person sitting there wishing for difficulty to happen. But what self-improvement can help you do is become the type of person who can deal with difficulty, who can deal with hardship. So when it eventually does come knocking at that door, you are prepared to answer. Because we do not want to be left unprepared, and we do not want to be left unable to deal with that. That's what self-improvement can help us do. And you can do all of that by following that process. That is self-improvement. Now, if everything I spoke about there, you enjoyed that and you felt, oh my God, I want to learn more about that, I have an email newsletter. I release it every single Monday. It's called the Best Day of the Week, because that's exactly what Monday is. It's a fitness and self-improvement podcast. If you want to sign up for it and receive one of those emails every single week, it's in the description below. If all the things I spoke about today sounded like, oh, I would love to apply all that into my life, and you want help with the implementation of that, you need the structure and the accountability around that, that's exactly what I do as a coach. I help people with their fitness and self-improvement. I help people build a physique and a routine that they can be proud of. But through that exact system there, I would hold you accountable to it, and I give you all the structure and direction you need tied to that. So if that's something you're interested in, if you click the link in the description below, I'll explain exactly what I do to help you do that, and you can inquire if you want to know more. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. As ever, I hope you gain some value from it and that you can apply some of that into your own pursuit of constant improvement. Thank you for listening.